So it's been just about 2 weeks since Dragons Dogma 2 released, and if you're the type of person that pays attention to really anything video game news related, you've more than likely seen the complete and utter shitstorm that ensued from the microtransaction shop associated with the game. Now, I'll be honest, I got pretty hyped for Dragons Dogma 2. I actually never played the first one, but I never heard anything but good things about it. And whenever I saw the preview, the release of the gameplay footage and what they showed us, I got pretty excited for it. I felt like it was kind of gonna scratch my Dragon Age itch that's been going on since I first played Inquisition. And I really tried to not let all of the negative press impact my opinion or what I was expecting of the game. I try to do that with anything. I like to formulate my own opinion and try not to let the masses influence the way that I feel about something. And with that, that's kind of the reason that I wanted to just make this video and talk about everything that goes into Dragons Dogma 2, because 98%, I'm going to say, of the articles that you see or the post videos anyone makes are all about the microtransactions and people's opinions on that, and that's fair. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. That's not the point of this. I do think that microtransactions in single-player games are stupid. I think they're dumb. I will not be spending any money on anything like that for any sort of reason, but I digress. I wanted to go over and talk about the other elements that affect Dragons Dogma 2, as a game itself, beyond what we see in the store as far as microtransactions go, and just talk about what the game is at its core, what might possibly make it good to someone who's wondering what it is beyond that disgusting store page, and what might cause someone to not like it. What's going to make you like this game? What do I like about this game? What do I not like about it? And just kind of see if what we've been seeing in terms of all those stories, all those news articles about the microtransactions are as detrimental to the core game as people are trying to make it out to be, or if there's something buried a little bit deeper past that can bring enjoyment to us as the player. So the first thing I'm going to say, and this is probably where I'm going to get the most amount of hate, and 80% of people are going to stop watching and they're going to dislike and they're going to be like, yo, you're dumb, you're stupid, get out of here, your opinion shit. I don't care. Dragons Dogma 2 is a beautiful ass game, okay? This game looks fantastic. Number one, the cutscenes, beautifully fucking rendered. They look amazing. They're incredibly smooth. All the characters look fantastic. I mean, cutscenes are 10 out of 10. Just amazing job to the dev team on that. They look phenomenal. Now, everyone's gonna come in and say, oh, what about the frame rate? It's only 38 FPS on PS5.
Shut up, bitch!
I don't care. It still looks great, okay? I'm the person that still plays Bloodborne, okay, that runs at 30 FPS, and I think that's great. Is it a little weird going from something, like Helldivers or, I don't know what other games are out right now that run like super smooth like fucking butter, but like, is it an adjustment? Yeah, of course, it's an adjustment. But after probably like 10 or 15 minutes of playing, I honestly don't even notice any choppiness anymore. I think the environments are beautiful. I think the character design is fantastic. Obviously, everyone's seen, or most people have probably seen, the level of detail that goes into the character creation. And that's a whole thing in and of itself that's just great. I'm not going to go over really look at that because I feel like that was another thing that was super popular for everyone to talk about when they had that kind of little demo out for the character creator. But I digress. Everything from the cutscenes to just the environments and the designs in the game, I think are really fantastic. It's super pleasing to look at, and listen, man, if you can't get past the FPS limit, I don't know what to tell you. You know, not everything has to run at,
Oh, Knight, you're dumb. Everything has to run at 42,000 frames per second, or my little Reddit brain just can't comprehend it, think it looks good. Oh my god, it hurts my eyes.
No, it doesn't. Shut up. It does not. It looks fine. It's great. Or I've had a couple times, where I've had some frame stuttering, just like where there was a metric shit ton of stuff going on, but it rectifies itself in a couple seconds, and it's nothing that's like game breaking or truly detrimental to your experience. At least I'm going to say to 90% of people. So just looking at the game for visual representation or presentation would be the right word there. It's phenomenal. It looks great, not only in the cutscenes, but I think in just normal everyday exploration and interactions as well. The one thing that does irritate me though, and that's annoying as shit, and I just can't help but fucking get it out of my mind, and maybe this is the pot calling the kettle black, but goddamn, do the NPC mouths not fucking look like they are saying what they say they're saying, okay? It does not line up. I am really trying to not like hyper fixate on their mouths when NPCs are talking, but I don't know. Maybe I'm in the same degree as the FPS junkies, and my brain just like looks at their mouths, and I either expect them to not talk like a FromSoft game, or I just want it to sync up or something. I don't know. That's my one complaint graphically, is just that, I don't know, my weird pea brain just looks at the mouths and I'm like, that doesn't line up. You're possessed. Something's going on there, and I don't like it. I do have to give credit to the voice actors, though. That is the other side of the coin there. While graphically, I think that outside of the cutscenes, the regular conversations with NPCs kind of look a little poo-poo. I feel like every voice actor in the game does a phenomenal job. Anywhere from, the main characters, NPCs that we interact with, down to just kind of the random citizens. I feel like all of the line delivery from everyone is fantastic. Nothing sounds like overly cartoony or that anyone's trying too hard. It definitely helps with the immersion of the world that they're trying to create in Dragons Dogma. Everything sounds very natural when you talk to, some of the NPCs, some of the characters like in the slums. They have a certain kind of dialect about them versus when you talk to some of the people that are obviously, more well off in like the noble quarter or something. There are distinct dialects that you can see that the voice actors implemented in the delivery of their lines, which I think is great. When you play a game like this, you don't want everyone to sound the same, when there is such a diverse portfolio of characters. And that's just awesome. I love that. I think back, and anytime I think of games like this, something that I always kind of compare it to is like the Fable games, where obviously it's a little bit more cartoony and kind of funny, so they really go over the top with that. And at times it kind of, while in Fable it's meant to kind of be funny and be a little bit goofy, something like in Dragons Dogma, the way that the voice actors, like I said, the way that they delivered that and the, robustness in which they go into that role definitely plays a key part in the immersion. And I just gotta give kudos to all the voice actors. They did a phenomenal job with everyone that I met so far, about 20 hours in. There are a lot of characters that have distinct voices, and when I talk to them, or if I were to hear something, from them on, a video or gameplay clip or anything, I could probably tell you who that is, as they've all done a really good job of carving out the persona of that character. So that's definitely a plus outside of their weird, stupid ass mouths. I have to stop talking about it, or I'm gonna have an aneurysm. Okay, so I didn't really mean for this to be so far into the video, like almost 10 minutes in, but I'll put a timestamp in there. Obviously, if you're hearing this, you don't need a timestamp, but I digress. Anyway, need to talk about the gameplay, right? That's probably one of the most important things for 99% of people when they look at a game, if they decide they want to buy it. Is this going to be fun? I gotta be honest with you guys, when I first started out in Dragons Dogma, and it still happens with me today sometimes, I die a lot. Not gonna lie, but I think that's because of my own ignorance. Not gonna lie. So it definitely, as far as the gameplay goes, I have grown to appreciate it. It is different. It's comparable to a Dragon Age game, but it is a little bit different. You do have to play, at least in my opinion, a little bit smarter, a little bit more tactical, because it's not as, it's not as straightforward. There are definitely a lot of different elements that go into being successful in combat in Dragons Dogma 2. We have, when you start out, obviously you get to pick a vocation, which is essentially like a class. We have our basic ones. You have like, I forget exactly, I think it's called fighter, which is like sword and shield. You have a ranger, major, mage, thief, kind of like a dagger, like a dex build almost, and then you get some additional ones when you progress so far in the story. And they do let you build your character pretty much however you want, and you can switch between those vocations at will, which is honestly a really, really cool gameplay element because you're not locked into anything. You don't need to, grind for anything or search for anything to be able to switch those. I, at this point, could have every vocation unlocked on my character, on my Arisen, if I wanted to. Some of them I haven't done yet, just because I like the one that I'm playing with, and it's the one that fits my playstyle the best. But if you pick something, you're like, oh crap, I don't like this, it's not fun, it's not working for me, hey man, you can just go switch. You'll probably have enough renown to purchase another vocation and just switch to that. But the thing that I think that really makes Dragon's Dogma stick out and makes it incredibly interesting is the pawn system. So when you first start the game, you get to create like your main pawn, which is, another person in your party. It's essentially a party system for anyone that might not be familiar with that terminology that they chose. And then you can also summon 2 different pawns at any time. So you have yourself and then a party of 3 additional pawns that will follow you around. And you can customize those any way that you want, by going to a rift and picking 2 other pawns to bring with you. So, I mean, you could have a whole party of fighters, you could have a whole party of mages, a whole party of rangers, thieves, whatever. Or probably the smarter thing is to have a good mix. I have my pawn who specializes as a thief, kind of like that dex build, and then I typically bring like another fighter or a mage with me. And it's really cool because you can also switch that up depending on the situation that you're in, right? So if you die because your party just wasn't equipped correctly to, meet the need of that enemy or, meet the need of that battle, cool, man, you can go to a riftstone and you can switch out your 2 other pawns, or even change your vocation or your main pawn's vocation to something else and apply to them whatever you need for that situation. It does a really good job, of giving us a good mix of enemies and a good mix of choices that we can have for our character and for our party as well. One thing that, if I think back, and I'm going to compare this to Dragon Age a lot because it is, in that same kind of family of game. One thing that kind of irritated me about Dragon Age, not that it's a major concern, but, the way that characters and your allies, your party members were locked to certain things. If I liked a certain person, but we were doing something where they were almost useless, I either had to struggle through bringing them along, and just kind of deal with it, or I had to swap them out for another party member whose skills and, attributes would be more effective for that situation. And with your pawn, your main pawn, which is probably the one that you'll be the most attached to, you're not going to run into that issue. If you're having a problem where, your playstyle doesn't fit the one of your main pawn or even your own player character, you can just switch that, which is great. And as I said, the combat does take a little bit of getting used to. It is definitely, I want to say it requires a little bit more of a methodical approach, I think, that I've been used to in other games like this. Maybe something, versus Dragon Age, you do have to think a little bit more tactically. But I have been adjusting kind of the way I play, not so much just let's run in there and do it. I focus on I'm focusing more on the skills that I have and how I've noticed, the temperaments of my party members and such, and how they react to enemy encounters as well. And I've noticed that now I am dying less. That's weird. When you use your brain, you don't die as much. But the combat is very rewarding. It's very fun. There is even in just the amount of time that I've played in the kind of 2 main areas that I've been to, there's a good assortment of enemies, and they require different tactics to be able to take them down. So it's really nice not having just, a bunch of continuously copy and pasted enemies that just all fight the same, and every fight you're gonna win the same way just by brute force or whatever. I do really enjoy the combat now. I think it's fun. And the higher level that you get in your vocation or your class, whatever you want to call it, obviously the more things you're gonna unlock, and that's gonna allow you to tailor a little bit more to how you play and what pawns you're going to bring with you and how you're going to handle tougher enemies and things like that. So another thing that goes into the gameplay, and I think is particularly important for Dragons Dogma 2, is how they handle exploration and travel in the game. So at this point, like I said, there could be things that I'm not aware of at this point. I'm only 20 hours into the game in terms of amount of playtime. There's 3 main ways or things that you can do to travel around the map. You can use fairy stones, which are essentially like a fast travel item. You can find them in game. It is something that you can also buy on the microtransaction, thing on the store page, but we're not going to talk about that. You can use ox carts, which are kind of similar to, you think like how those carts worked in like Skyrim. Or you can just walk your happy ass around the map, which is honestly probably the most rewarding way to travel. Exploration is 100% incentivized in Dragons Dogma 2, and at first I wasn't really a fan of having to walk everywhere or using ox carts because I didn't have that many fairy stones, but I think that was just a case of me kind of being spoiled by fast travel being such a common thing in modern games, and while I do like to explore, I also kind of like the leisure and the accessibility of fast travel. But I've grown to love it, honestly. Using ox carts, which are as akin to fast travel as you can get without using those fairy stones, or just walking everywhere, is great. There's so many things to find out there in the world, so many things that the devs have hidden, and you're definitely going to be rewarded if you do decide to, strap on your boots and walk your happy ass wherever you need to go. There's a lot of diverging paths. There's random encounters you can find out in the world, not only with enemies, of course, to get valuable materials and get experience, but also, just little quests that you might find out in the world. So I am definitely pro no fast travel or no super accessible fast travel now, at least for this game. The ox carts are there. They're very cheap to use as far as the in-game currency goes. For gold, it's usually like 100 or 200 gold, and you will have a complete excess in that. I take ox carts. If I don't want to walk somewhere, I don't even give a second thought to waiting on an ox cart to just take me there. But I would definitely encourage you, if you do pick up this game and you're kind of like thinking, oh man, Jesus, I have to walk halfway across the map to this place before I can, get an ox cart or whatever, which I actually don't think is true. I think you can take an ox cart before even visiting a certain place on foot if you've advanced far enough. Don't quote me on that, but I'm 99% sure that's true. Take the time and explore. Go off the beaten path, look and see what you can find out in the world. It's going to make your whole journey not only a hell of a lot more fun, but it's going to make it a hell of a lot more easier too, because you're going to get materials that you can sell, You're going to find other quests, and you're going to help NPCs and get rewards from that. And you're going to find random treasure chests spewed all across the landscape, all across the country, and you never know what you might find in there. I found some pretty good shit in some random chests that I've just stumbled upon, or one of my pawns has been like, "Oh, master, I know where there's a chest nearby. Should I show you?" And then they show me. I'm like, "Hell yeah, dude! There's some good shit in there. I like that." Like I said, I really wasn't a fan of that at first. I kind of was annoyed by it, but once I kind of opened my mind to it and thought, okay, well, this is obviously an element that's in here for a reason. There's a particular, there has to be some reason why they don't want me to fast travel, and it's because they want you to explore. They want you to see all of the things that are out there, and whether it be monster encounters or helping, with culling requests, killing monsters, or guiding some type of, person to a checkpoint or something. That's what the game's about. Exploration is a key factor in Dragon's Dogma, and I now see why they made fairy stones, kind of not as common as some other things might be, or why they didn't include a direct fast travel element. But it's another aspect where you just get to see, some beautiful game design. It feels like when you're walking around in Dragon's Dogma that you're really experiencing that world. All the areas are unique, even within Vermund, or when you go to Batal. You'll learn to recognize certain landmarks, and you'll know where you are. It's not like walking through just a barren world, a completely empty world. And I'm sorry, man, I gotta say it. The fanboys will come after me, and I'm kind of a fanboy too, but it's not like Breath of the Wild, right? This does seem like a living, breathing world that we've been placed into, and there is a reason for the vast map that's been put in front of us. So honestly, in terms of that, just in terms of the exploration, the map design, and kind of for the gameplay element, how travel works, I think they did a phenomenal job on that. If it was an empty world with nothing to do, I'd be calling this a detriment. But with the way that everything's been designed and things have been implemented in the game, and the way things are placed in there, 100%, the redaction of that fast travel, I think, is something that puts Dragon's Dogma, a little bit above some other games in terms of being open world and the travel utilization methods that we have that have been given to us. So the last thing that I want to get into before I talk about just a couple of the issues that I have with the game is something that's pretty important to me, and that's the story, kind of the narrative of the game, both the main story and the side quests that are included. It's really hard for me to enjoy a single player game, honestly, if the story isn't at least present and I want to say presented, but that's what I just said. But if it's not there in a good, deliverable, engaging fashion, and with my 20 hours in Dragon's Dogma 2, I gotta say I am getting pretty damn invested in the story. Super like minor spoiler alert, so I'm not gonna go into anything major, but essentially what the premise is that you are the Arisen, which is the chosen person to rule over Vermund, and it turns out that someone is essentially pretending to be you. Political unrest, fighting for power, all that good stuff, and you essentially set out to prove that you are the true Arisen and ascend to the throne. Now, I gotta say, it does take a little bit for the story to kind of pick up. It's not something that, like, right out of the gate, there's, at least to me, there wasn't like any major hook right in the beginning or anything where I was like, oh yeah, dude, what's gonna happen next? Oh my god, I can't wait. It took a little bit to get there, but I am at the point where I am getting invested. I am interested. It is actually getting pretty engaging at this point. I have no idea how far into the main story I am. I think I'm maybe only, like, I want to say a quarter of the way there, if even that, but I have no idea. Now, in addition to that, all of the side quests that I have played, I gotta say, they have all been very unique, very interesting, and have all had pretty decent, differentiating, concepts between them. I'm a huge fan of them. It's really easy in games like this, in RPGs in particular, to have side quests that just seem like repeats of each other. It's always the same thing. It's a fucking fetch quest. It's a this, it's a that, whatever. But so far, there are a pretty good amount of unique side objectives or side quests in here that all have kind of their own flavor and their own spice to them, which is really nice. Now, I'm assuming, at some point I'm gonna see more and more things, and you would as well, that are similar to each other, or things that, are gonna follow kind of the same tropes, but I'm really invested in them at this point. I pick up anyone that I can, and I have no reason to not do it. I have yet to have a side quest aside from like one of the very first ones, kind of in like what you could call the tutorial time, that I was just like, oh my god, do I really have to do this? They're all really good. Gotta give them props, and that all just goes along, kind of going back to what I said in the beginning. All the voice acting is really great. The characters are all unique in their own right, and I think that definitely contributes to it as well. And you can see how all the different NPCs and all the different characters, have kind of these unique things about them, and the devs and the writers have all, built these different kind of sects, or factions for them to be involved in. Not outright factions, not like the Dark Brotherhood or any shit like that, at least that I know of, but all these just kind of individual things happening that the Arisen can intervene in, and take part in, and choose to assist with. So I think that's a plus. All of the quest stuff, for me, again, 20 hours in, has been great. I've enjoyed every single one of them, save for some of the beginning ones. So I got to give them props for, even 20 hours in, not having any strict repeats or anything that I've accepted where I'm like, oh my god, it's just something like this again. I can't believe I have to do this again. Kudos to them on that. I'm really a fan. I think the main quest and the side quest building in the game is phenomenal, and I expect that to kind of continue throughout the rest of the game from what I've seen. Well, I've been talking for almost half an hour about things that, for the most part, I really enjoy about Dragons Dogma 2, and I had a few things kind of cliff noted down that I had said I wasn't really enjoying about the game, but I've noticed that those were all pretty much things that I took down, or I thought of in maybe like the first, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 hours of me playing, maybe a little bit longer. And I think I can kind of sum everything up with just one major thing as far as the actual gameplay elements go that I don't like about Dragons Dogma, and some people will probably disagree with this, but this is just my opinion, and that's that the game starts so damn slow. The first couple hours, to me in particular, just felt like a damn slog. Like, I thought about this and I was all like gung-ho on just being like, Dragons Dogma this, and the money's hard to get, and nothing's happening, and it's so slow, and everything's just green woods and blah blah blah. And the more that I played it, now being 20 hours in, none of that is really applicable anymore. All of the concerns that I've had have faded. Now, I do feel like that's still kind of a valid criticism, or a valid concern maybe for some people, depending, of course, on your play style and what you look for in a game. But I still do think that the game starts out extremely slow and not as fun as some similar games of this ilk, you know. As I said, it took a little bit for the story to develop. It took me particularly a little bit to kind of get used to the combat and some of the other things like the traveling and things like that, and how to appropriately use, you know, use the pawns, how the pawn system worked and things like that. But the more you play, those things and those concerns do fade away, because of course you're going to get adjusted to how the game plays and the aspects of the gameplay that the developers intended. Outside of that, I mean, there are some other things that I do feel like are worth bringing up. And if I'm incorrect in these, I am open to be corrected. That's fine. Someone please let me know if they're true. But there's just some things like modifying your character, you know, that's a thing in the shop for some reason that you have to pay to do. I've seen, and I think it's still true, that you can only have one save file, one character, and I don't actually think there's a way to delete it. I was actually talking to my wife about this just the other day, how, I think it was today actually, earlier today, how, you know, if I just completely didn't like my character, or if I screwed something up and I wanted to do it different, I couldn't go and make another character. I don't even think you can delete your character, your save file, because everything's going to go to the cloud. So I think it's kind of weird, and I definitely think it's a detriment that you can only have one save file. Now, that might not be an issue for everyone, but I could definitely see that being a problem for a lot of people who, you know, might want to have different characters like me. And in Elden Ring, for example, I have like 8 characters that even sometimes I go back and play all of them. You know, in any FromSoft game, most people will tell you they have multiple characters. Even in Dragon Age, you know, you could have multiple save files. And of course, in Dragons Dogma, you know, when it comes to vocations or whatever, not really a problem, because you can switch between them, and maybe that was the, you know, the idea behind only having the one save file. But I think in 2024, it should be a standard that if we're going to have a single player game, we should be able to have multiple save files. But that's really it. Those are only really kind of like the main concerns that I can think of. Nothing from the gameplay specifically really stands out to me that I feel like is worthy of calling out in and of itself. You know, do I wish that some things were easier to obtain? Yeah, absolutely. Is that something that I feel like is really worth as a criticism? No, because that's just an opinion. It's not, it's not a factual thing that I think is worth mentioning. I guess you could say the same thing about my opinion of the beginning of the game, but I think that's something that a lot of people might share if they have the same mentality I do. But like I said, the game has definitely turned around, and all of the kind of little concerns like that I would have originally vocalized, and I think it's a fantastic game now. Do I think that it's an absolute 10 out of 10? No. There are little things that I think could be changed, or that really not really that I think could be changed, but things that I don't even want to say that I have a problem with, but some things that I might not particularly enjoy. But Dragons Dogma 2 is a solid game, 100%. I think that it is 100% something beyond the disgusting list of microtransactions that has been floating around and rearing its ugly head on every social media platform, and that everyone has, spoken on and said their 2 cents about. Even I did at the beginning of the video. But if you're a fan of RPGs, if you're a fan of kind of, that Dragon Age style gameplay, kind of a little bit more classic RPG maybe than a lot of things that are released, Dragons Dogma is a great game. It's engaging, it's got amazing visuals, fantastic voice acting. The gameplay, while it does take a little bit to get adjusted to, is fun, and it's very rewarding once you really get it down and you feel like you're mastering the controls. And I feel like that the devs, I feel like they did a great job on this game. I'm not going to touch on the microtransactions thing at all. That's a whole other thing, and I wanted to look at this game beyond that and judge it for what's actually with it, what we paid our money for, right? When you buy Dragons Dogma 2, you get everything that I just talked about. You don't have to buy those microtransactions. You don't, those aren't required for you to be successful in the game. Would they make it easier? Yeah, absolutely. And that's why they did it. I get it. I can't say I agree with it, but I understand why they did it. Now, if you're like me, this is the last thing that I'll say about it. If you don't support that, type of microtransactions in single player games, just do what I'm doing, man. I'm not going to buy them. We want to get, if you're a person that has a problem like that, buy the game, don't buy the microtransactions, because when that company, Capcom looks at those numbers, they're going to see, oh, hey, we made a bunch of money from the game sales, but not so much with the microtransactions. Maybe we need to reevaluate that. But anyway, guys, that's my kind of 20-hour review of Dragons Dogma 2 beyond the microtransactions. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're playing the game, or if you have any thoughts on it, or if this swayed you one way or the other, let me know what you think. I'm curious. I don't know anyone else that's playing this game right now, so I'd like to see what some other people think, if they share my ideas, or maybe or not my ideas, my ideals, I guess you could call them, or if you are thinking one way or the other, or do you have any problems with anything in the game? Did you have a similar experience to me, or are you just ripping through it, or are you really struggling? But if you guys made it the whole way to the end, I very much appreciate you for checking this out, and I will see you next time. Don't know what we're going to look at. Might be a retrospective, might be a new game coming out, but as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.